Hello everyone, it's Susan here. Welcome to my channel. And today's video is crafty chit chat and slow stitching. Today I'm working in my black and white Just Because book. And I'm going to show you how far I've gotten and we'll do some work. I have a couple slow stitch kind of things to share with you. And yeah. So I did go ahead and sew all of this down on the cover. So this is sewn. So I'm happy with the way it looks. I sewed this piece down as flat as I could get it because it was a very dimensional piece. But when I sewed it, I really just tried to make it as flat as possible. And I have a little bit of fiber in the back, a little bit of yarn in the back. Yeah, and I have some lace around the edges. Yep. And I'm using a piece of burlap for the cover. Now the cover is bigger than my pages and intentionally so, and I like it. So let's go ahead and look on the inside. Okay, so let me kind of explain how I'm doing this book. So this block right here, I added a little bit of extra lace over here. I have some stamped linen napkin fabric. I just have a little piece of just a little piece of fabric that I had from something, and I sewed a little white X inside of it. I have fabric with numbers on it, and I sewed that there. And then I have this little tassel, which is actually an earring. But yeah, I thought it was perfect, so I put that there. So what I did was, once I had this block done, I was able to sew it into the journal along, well, in this case, it's a little bit different, but it also, so like some of the stitching you can see on the other side, not all of it, because there's several layers going on here. So but it was okay if I could, right? So yep. So that was a lot of fun getting that sewn down. And now this over here is also all sewn. So, and I'll show you how I'm putting these pages together. But this is actually, I shouldn't even be showing you this. The video on this is coming out on Friday. So I'm showing you something that you shouldn't see, but it's there and I'm going to show you what I'm going to do, right? So this is actually a cluster, and yeah, and it has some stenciling with black ink as well as with some pink pH Dr. PH Martin liquid watercolor, and a little button. And I saw Susan Taylor Brown do a button in her cluster last week, and I'm like, oh, I loved it, so I added that on here. I have a little stenciling on this little piece of eyelet as well. And of course I have my fibers going on. It's a very, you can see like there's like lots of stuff hanging everywhere, and I really like that. So if I didn't mention already, check out Susan Taylor Brown. She's the one that coined the Just Because book. And there is a challenge going on right now for a black and white Just Because book. Now, I have decided to add some pink into this. So every now and again, you're going to see a little bit of pink in this. But this right here is just a piece of lace, a little piece cut out from a fabric, a little button. I did do some French knots there and over here. I probably should have done them in a different color because you really can't see them. But once this block is done, and when I say a block, what I mean is a piece of fabric like this. So this is basically, these are basically like my pages, right? So I sew on these, and then I sew them onto the pages. And again, I'll show you a little bit better in a second. But once I had this block done, and this was already done because this was a cluster that I made purposely in the right size for this just because book. So once I had those two, then I was able to sew both of the blocks onto the pages as well as sewing the pages together. So let me explain. So this right here, this block is done. I can take it off. It's okay if I take it off. I'll deconstruct it just a little bit for you here so you can see what I mean. So this block is done, right? I sewed everything on here. And this is the page. Here's the page to my book. And I'm going to put a little bit of black lace up here. And I'll probably clean this up just a little bit because it's a little, well, it's not even. I don't know that that totally bothers me, but I don't know. So that's going to end up getting sewn there. But what will happen is that this page and this page will get sewn together. So these will get sewn together along with the completed blocks. So the block that we're going to work on today, and it's not pinned really that well together, is this one. This one is going to go here, and you can see my little pop of pink going on there. When I sew this block on here, it's going to be sewing 2 blocks and 2 pages together, and a piece of an additional piece of lace, black lace. So yeah, so you know, it somehow works. It just does. Yeah. So then that's a page. That's going to be a page, right? So this, and again, this is kind of falling apart, but that's going to be a page. That will be a page. And then this is the next page. And then I have more pages that I'm going to put in here. And those will get sewn together. And here's my blocks. Now, sometimes I don't use the white block because sometimes the piece of fabric that I'm working with is the right size. So like this one that we're working on, there's no white block. It's just the fabric. And that's fine. That acts as my block. As you can see, it's the same size. There's no need for me to put this white piece of fabric under here. It has no purpose because everything that I'm sewing is going to go onto this one piece of fabric. And of course I have additional lace up there. So what we're going to do is we're going to move this aside. And this is just the beginnings of my next block. You know, as I think of things, you know, I throw them together and, you know, I don't know that it will stay, but this one does have the white block underneath, and I'm sewing everything onto that. So, but I'll add more on there. I just don't know what yet. Okay, so that's that, and this is what we are going to work on together. I think I'll zoom in just a tad. Okay, so let's do a little, I want to do a little share with you. So, oh, on Thursday, I shouldn't show you this either. This little starfish tray is going to be in my Thrifty Thursday video on Thursday this week. But I just had to share it because I'm already using it. I got it yesterday, and yesterday I started using it. So what I do, like right now, I'm working actually on an ironing board. I'm standing up and I'm working on an ironing board. So I have a nice long ironing board to put different things as I work here. It's really a great option if you want to stand while you're working and you didn't have a place to do that. The ironing board is high enough to where you know, you're not bending over. Plus it's an ironing board. I mean, if you need to iron, you can iron on the ironing board, you know, which I've done with my fabric that I sew with. And Yeah, and if you needed to put the ironing board away, you certainly could, obviously, right? So it's just a really good, inexpensive option for another table, another workspace in your craft room or wherever it is you're working. All right, so the other thing before we get sewing that I wanted to share, I did purchase on Etsy a whole bunch of the yeah, what are these called? Um, yo-yos. I should write a little note and like put it on here because I don't remember that word. And I know some people call them Suffolk something. But if I could just remember the word yo-yos, I'd be happy. But I got 3 different sizes. I got, these are um, 3/4 inch. Now there's 40 in here. So each of these packages have 40 yo-yos in them for $10.99. So this one has 40 in the apricot color, right? Pretty. Those are 3/4 inch. I have this set, which is the neutral set. And these are 1 inch, so these are slightly bigger. And then these are 1.5 inch. Oh, there's 30 in here, 30. And this obviously is the blue set. So the place that I ordered it from on Etsy is right there, if you want to grab that name. And yeah, it was really, I saw Sherry from Turquoise Dreaming. She had placed an order from this shop. And oh my gosh, it was a lot of fun shopping there. And I'm glad that I got those. Yeah, I thought it was a good price and saves me from having to sew a whole bunch of yo-yos. Okay, so now I want to work on this with all of you. So my thought is this. So, like, the reason I like working on blocks, right, or pages, whatever you want to call it, is because I like working outside of the book. So that is, that's the reason why I like to do this. So I'm going to put this here. So this is just a piece of fabric. It had this design on it, and I thought that that would look really nice on here. In fact, this was the fabric. So when you're looking through your fabrics, like, I'm like, oh my gosh, well, I can't use that because it's not black and white. It has a color in it that I'm not using. I'm not using blue or grayish blue, right? But when you look at it, there is just black and white on this piece that I'm using. So really look at, what, like kind of look at a piece of fabric and look at it differently, right? So I'm glad that I noticed that, and I just tore off a little piece, and here you go. I have a nice little piece to use on here. So I also have this. This came from, let me see. It came from, I don't see, oh, here it is. So it came from a piece of fabric that looks like this, which I love. And it is the top block of this right here. So I didn't need 4 numbers on here. 3 was fine. So I cut this off, and I don't really like the number 13 anyway. So I'm going to make like a little cluster here. So I know that I can go over this block on the left side because that's where it's going to go in my book, right? So it's going to go here. So I can have lace stick out on this side. So I like that. And so I figure, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and sew that down, and then it will be easier for me to handle um, as I continue to sew. So I'm going to actually take these four pieces, and all I'm going to do is sew this button on. Now I know you can see the 13 underneath a little bit, but hey, this is a just because book, right? It's okay to see it. It's not about perfection, and that is not my goal. So I'm just going to sew the button, and just by sewing the button, it is sewing all four layers, so to speak. So it's sewing this piece, it's sewing the number 13, it's sewing the lace and the button all in one shot. So again, it just makes it easier to handle when you are when I go to sew it onto the block. All right, and actually the pink on this is really what made me add a pop of pink to this book, this black and white book. You know, I like to do black and white, but I almost always add a pop of color, and that color, well, it just has to be pink, because for me, what other color is there? So yeah. So that's how I ended up with pink in here. Okay, so now it's like, now I have to decide, do I want to put that or sew that lace on at the same time that I'm going to sew this down? And I might as well, right? And I think what I'm going to use is I'm going to use some black. So I really struggled with this piece of yarn. Let me show you what it is. I got it from, oh, I hope I didn't just hit the camera. I got it from a thrift store where I did it twice. I think I got a couple of them, where you can purchase a brand new, unopened, like crewel project, you know, with the fabric and everything, the print, counted cross stitch, whatever the case may be. And so I end up with all this beautiful yarn that I get to use. So I went in here and I pulled out one of these pieces right here. Yeah, and I tried sewing with it that thick, which is 3 strands, but I couldn't get it through the fabric. And if I'm going to struggle that much, oops, now I lost my yarn, that I was going to sew with. Where'd it go? I'm sure it's stuck in here. Here it is. That if I am really going to struggle that much sewing something on, I don't think I want to sew it. I like, to me, it's, I don't know, unless there was something that I really, really, really needed to have down. If it's gonna hurt my fingers a lot, I think I've kind of learned just not to do it. I did used to really, really struggle. And, you know, and I just don't want to do that, because this is supposed to be fun, right? I think I'm too close. This is supposed to be fun. So, sorry about that. I'm trying to get the camera right. I'm just doing, a straight stitch right across here. That's all, just to get it down. Yeah, so that's kind of what I told myself. I don't want to struggle, because then my hands hurt, and yeah, and I don't want that. So that's just me. I mean, will I ever struggle with it again? Probably. But yeah, not if I can help it. All right, so now, and again, I'm sewing down multiple layers all at once. So I'm sewing this piece, I'm sewing the piece of fabric with the pink on it, as well as that piece of lace. Okay, so now I have to decide what to do because now I have this little cluster going on here. Now what I'm going to do, because it doesn't matter, because it's going to be under the cluster, is I'm going to continue sewing, but I'm sewing underneath the cluster. Oh, did I go around the wrong way? Oh, I did it again. You guys, I don't know. I do this all the time where I go in from one way and I'm supposed to be going in from the other way. And yeah, you guys have seen me do this before. So I'm just going to pull that out and and rethread. Oh my gosh, I do that like all the time. I don't think I pay attention as well as I should to what I'm stitching. I don't know, because I do it when I'm not recording as well. So yeah, I can't even blame it on, oh, I'm recording and I wasn't paying attention. No, I do this all the time. I go in from the wrong direction all the time. Okay, so now I just want to make sure that things are kind of straight. All right, and I'm going to go in. I have to go in from underneath, Susan, underneath. But same concept. I'm just going to stitch under that little cluster. And then I will knot it. So now I know that that whole long piece of fabric is down. This black piece is down. Yep. And let's tie that off. All right. So that is good. Now here's another cluster I made. This is also going to be in my Friday video this week. And this is going to end up in this black and white book as well. Okay, so all of that is sewn, right? The whole top is all sewn, and I like it, and it's a little bit wonky, and it's looking good. Let me grab my little book here, and then we're going to sew in the bottom. So it's looking good, right? That's going to get sewn there along, well, I lost my lace, along with all of this on this side. That's going to be a page all sewn together. All right. So now I have this word crayon from this piece of fabric. You know, crayon, sure, why not, right? I mean, yeah, it was the right size. It was a whole word, and I grabbed it, and I thought it looked cute. I could have put it straight across, but I decided to do it at a little bit of an angle because underneath it is a beautiful piece of like tulle with little flowers. So if I went like this, I felt like I was covering up those flowers too much. So I'm like, well, let me slant it and sew it, right? So that's what I'm going to do. So let's see, what do I want to do here? I'm just trying to think. Like, because what I'm thinking is to maybe take some white pearl thread and maybe sew this tulle down with just a few French knots. So one of the things that I like to do is I like things to be loose. So you'll see that I don't sew things down to where you can't move them. Like I like movement, right? I like that. So I think that's what I'm going to do. So let me go ahead and go back to my white. And I'm just going to, you know what, I think I'll do one in the middle of this flower. And maybe one in the middle of the other one. Now I could have gone with black, but I'm kind of liking the whole white. So I'm just going to do that. You can barely see it, but it's there. It's there. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm not going to knot it off. I'm just going to come down into the middle of this white flower. And let's do another one. And to me, that's good enough to hold this piece of tulle down for sure. Okay, good. Cute, right? I mean, it's very subtle. It's very subtle, but you know what? There's a lot of other stuff going on here on this page, so that is a-okay. And then we will get the word crayon down. So in last week's live video of our YouTube live of Susan Taylor Brown, she was doing some, what kind of stitching is it called? Blanket stitching. And I was like, you know, I really struggle with blanket stitching. I just do. Like in my head, it doesn't even make sense to me. Like I can't just blanket stitch because I never know, do I start at the top? Do I start at the bottom? When do I grab that other piece of thread so that it makes that beautiful, like it goes across like this and then you go on to the, it doesn't make any sense in my head. It just doesn't. So I'm going to stick with the French knots, and I'm going to do a French knot. I'm going to stay with my three times around the needle, and I'm going to put a French knot in the middle of the O and in the middle of the A. And that's how I'm going to sew this down. So again, it's not, so all of this is going to be loose. It's going to be loose, and that is perfect. Because I'm going to explain just one more thing to you. Let me just do this. Because you have to remember as well that this block is going to be sewn into the book. So it becomes more solid, as I would say, solid, to where the fabrics are sewn together more. So what I mean by that is that, so like right now there's like a lot of looseness going on, which I love, like I said. But once you sew it down, it becomes more solid. It's more, so like even though this is like loose and I love it and everything, the underneath of it is sewn down and it becomes solid. Like I don't use batting or anything like that, but it just becomes where it's not so loose and you might feel like it's not sewn enough. It is, because once it gets sewn, you can be guaranteed that there are going to be 4 sides of this that are going to be sewn. So it's going to sew down, depending on how I do it. It might sew down this piece right here, and down here, and then across and then going up. So I am going to be grabbing some of this. I'll be grabbing some of this tulle. This I won't sew down anymore. This I'll make sure that I move. So I go like under it. So it does get a little bit more. Solid is the best word. You guys tell me, what is the word when you have something that, oops, you see what I just did? Let's see if I can knot this. All I want to do is knot it without putting the needle back in. And I can definitely do this. All right, so here goes. Okay. It's a little funky looking, but that's all right. So that is really the end of today's crafty chit chat and slow stitch video. And so what I will do is probably before the next video, next Monday, is I'll have this all sewn down. So I'm going to take those 2 pages. I'll take the block. Isn't that cute? Isn't that adorable? And I'm going to sew this all together. And then I have so I have 4 more blocks to do. 1, this gets sewn together. 2, 3. Well, I don't know. I was going to say 4. But if I sew this onto the back, it's not 4, it's actually 3. And see, I have ideas of what I want to do here. So I don't know that I'll actually do this. Oh, you know what? I may not be able to get this on here, which is fine. I can use it on something else. But I was thinking of doing something with like a piece of silver. And I have this really pretty little bauble I was thinking of adding, but who knows? I mean, I could change my mind. So I only have 3 more pages in this black and white just because book. Oh my gosh, how exciting. All right, well, thank you so much for being here. Check out Susan's video. I'll have her YouTube channel linked below, and she has a Facebook group as well, and you should see everybody's black and white books. They're awesome. And I'm very happy for this. I love this. I love the little bit of pink going on. Yeah, this one didn't have any pink, but that has a lot of pink, and that's the front. So let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you next Monday. Have a blessed week, everybody. Alrighty, bye-bye.